Welcome back, everybody, and if this is your first time to my channel, thanks for checking me out. I'm out here today fishing slip bobbers, which is one of my all-time favorite ways to fish for everything I fish for. Great thing about slip bobbers is they're so versatile, and in my opinion they are a go-to tactic for every part of the year. I just figured I'd take a quick minute and go over how I rig up a slip bobber. This is just kind of one of my stereotypical slip bobber rods. It's a 6.5 foot medium action rod. I've got it spooled up with 10-pound fire line. That's a braided line if you're not familiar with it. And then that runs down to a section of 8-pound fluorocarbon. I'm fishing in relatively clear water, so got to have that section of fluorocarbon so it virtually disappears under the water. This specific one is rigged up with a plain hook. I've also got a number that I rig up with jigs. You can see this one here is rigged up with a small jig on the end. You know, it's some days the fish prefer a jig, some days they prefer a plain hook, so it's good to have a few poles lined up with either. But anyhow, so the way you rig up a slip bobber, or the way I rig up a slip bobber, is I've got that fire line or that main braided line run down. You put your slip on above it, and my slip is, I'm fishing in deep water, so my slip today is buried in my spool. But you put your slip on. I use a small bead just because the thin diameter line, that slip will hit the bead. I prefer the Thill bobbers. They've got the metal grommet on the top. I think that just allows your line to slip through them so much faster. And then that is tied down. That main fire line or braided main line is run down to a small barrel swivel there and goes to my fluorocarbon leader. Now, you got to have that barrel swivel because you don't want to tie direct. Basically because you don't want your bobber to go past that barrel swivel. Even though these steel grommet bobbers have a pretty wide opening on the top, if you tie, if you use the double uni knot, there is enough there that uni knot will sometimes get hung up on the top of your bobber on a longer cast, so you got to have that barrel swivel to eliminate that issue. On this particular one, I've got about 4 feet of fluorocarbon down to a couple sinkers and then just a plain hook. Like I said, at different times of year, different presentations, I'll go with different styles of hooks. I'm fishing leeches and crawlers today, so if I'm marking a bunch of fish, and I've got one out right now with a jig on it, if they won't take that, I'll switch up and fish just a plain hook. One of the things I think I should talk about is how I'm hooking our bait on this. What I'm using today is the jumbo leeches. I tried to find the biggest leeches I could, and all I'm doing is taking that hook. You've got the sucker end of the leech, and I'm just punching it right behind that sucker. Just right behind that sucker one time through, just letting it dangle. The idea is I want that leech to float through the water and look as natural as possible on that plain hook. So I just hook them one time through, send it out there, and let the leech do the job for me. That's the great thing about slip bobber fishing, is you're able to present live bait, and basically you're just letting the bait do the work for you. That's also why I'm using a single hook. Sometimes in the fall, late in the fall or super early in the spring, if I'm fishing big minnows, I'll go with a small treble hook, but 90% of the time when I'm fishing plain hooks, it's just that single small octopus hook. All right, here we go, bobbers down. Just reeling up to that slack. There we go. Fish on. We're out here fishing for walleyes today, but fishing with slip bobbers is kind of a multi-species thing. Ooh, there we go. I was ill prepared here. And there you have it. Here we go. About an 18.5 19-inch walleye on that slip bobber. Beautiful golden walleye, you know, middle of the summer. Fishing some mid-lake structure, you know, I'm fishing in 15, 16 feet of water, but I can still fish a bobber because that slip bobber allows me to move that slip around, set it to the depth I want, and there you have it, nice walleye. One of the things I should touch on is how I set my slip bobbers. Now, you know, right now I'm currently fishing in 15 feet of water. I've got a 7-foot rod, so all you really need to do is, you know, you've got your slip right here on your line. You know, you could let your line out, reel your hook up till it's at the back of the pole here, and say, okay, if I set my slip for double my rod length, that's 14 feet. I do something a little bit different. I take one of these ice fishing weights, clip that on just like you're gonna check your depth for a tip up, or, you know, set a set line or something, and I send that baby down. All right. What I do then is I reel that up, reel that pole till my rod's at the tip of the water, right? So now the tip of my pole here would represent the bottom of the, you know, the ultimate bottom of the lake. So if I'm in 15 feet of water, I've got 15 feet of line here. Now what I do is just pick this up, find my slip, and start sliding that slip up the line. So I want to be fishing, I'm fishing in relatively cloudy water today, so I want that slip to be, you know, about 18 inches, maybe 24, you know, 18 to 20 inches from the bottom. So now I've got my, you remember, this represents the bottom. This is where I want my bobber set, so my bait will effectively be about 1.5 feet off the bottom. So then I can just double check that by letting the line out, and I'll watch the bobber go down. I should see it hover just below the surface of the lake. That is how I set my slip bobbers. Real clear water. You maybe want to fish a little higher in the water column, maybe as high as 3 or 4 feet off the bottom, because as those fish move about, they're going to be looking up to feed. I'm fishing stained water today, so that's why I'm only running, you know, 18 inches, maybe 2 feet off the bottom max, because these fish are hugging pretty tight to the bottom. And so I want to have that bait down in that zone where they see it. This one's running away from the boat. Oh no! I lost him. Well, I just missed that one, and I sent my bobber right back out to that same spot. It took about 30 seconds and it went back down. So let's see if I can get hooked up this time. There we go. This time I got him. Right. Just threw back that nice little, that about 18, 19 inch walleye, and now here we go, I got another one. This one's not going to go quite as big, but there are most definitely ways to fish these bobbers in an aggressive manner. Go out, search down fish, and try to drop it on top of them. But today I'm fishing a spot that I know is holding fish. I marked them, and I'm just kind of taking a passive approach to it. But there you go. There's so many different things you can do as far as slip bobber fishing. There's so many different styles and types of bobbers. There's all kinds of different line choices, hooks, whether you're gonna use a jig, a single hook, a treble hook. One of the things though that I think makes a world of difference, and you can see this is one of my slip bobber boxes, all the different styles of bobbers I've got in there, sizes for, smaller ones for fishing crappies or bluegills in the spring, some bigger ones for fishing walleyes, medium-sized ones maybe for whatever you're gonna do, big bluegills, big crappies. But one thing that I always is a consistent is the slips I use, and they're these pre-tied tie-on slips with the tag ends on there. They make a lot of plastic slips that you can weave your line through and that slide up and down. You know, I'm not a big fan of those because I feel like they kink your line at times, and you know, if you get a kink in your line, it could lead to breakage, and you don't want that. I really like these pre-tied slips. There's several different kinds. There's the nylon kind like these that once you cinch that down, boy, it's not coming off. And you know, there's another kind that's a little more like a yarn type material. They seem to loosen up and fray a little bit more, so I try to steer clear of those. But you know, these pre-tied slips, in my opinion, are the way to go. All you do is feed them onto your line through that the little barrel that they come on. You slide that barrel out like that, get rid of that, and then you just tighten that slip down on your line like there. Obviously there's no line. When I trim these, you know, I like to leave about a ½ an inch of excess. I feel like it flies through the guides of your pole a little better, and then if it loosens up, you have something there that you can just give a little tug and retighten it down. So there's just one more little hint when it comes to slip bobber fishing. Another bobber down. This one's just hanging out off the back of the boat. Coming back towards the boat. There he is. All right. Ooh. Feels like a heavy one. Whoa, whoa, maybe not a walleye. If it is, it's a decent fish, I'll tell you that. You know, the rock pile I'm fishing today has got walleyes, northerns, smallmouth bass on it, so great multi-species spot. Ooh, run like that. I'm guessing this is going to be a toothy little northern or a decent smallmouth. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Look at that tank. Look at that tank. Oh boy. Oh, I mean, look at that. That is a tank of a smallmouth right there. 19.5 inches. You know, I don't have a scale on the boat because I'm not a real weight guy, but I mean, a 19.5 inch smallmouth, I'll take that any day, you know, and that's just a product of slip bobber fishing, you know. Anything's gonna bite on that live bait presented underneath a slip bobber. So, man, there you have it. Well, I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it informational. But before I close out the video, I just want to reiterate one thing, that, you know, right now it's mid-August and I'm catching all kinds of different species of fish on these slip bobbers. But keep in mind, this is a technique for all times a year. Anytime you're going to fish with live bait, the slip bobber should always be an option. You know, we fish these ice fishing. You know, I'll put down a jig rod and throw a slip bobber next to it, draw in a nice fish with the movement of a jig, and they'll come over and hit that live minnow on my slip bobber rod in a nice shack. Early in the spring, when those fish are coming off the spawn, you know, they start moving out to those first pieces of structure. We start picking them off with big minnows because they're super hungry under a slip bobber. You know, late in the fall, when that water turns over and the fish move up shallow and they're back in the weeds, we'll fish these with minnows over the weeds. We fish slip bobbers for big spring crappies when they move up into the shallows in the early spring. I mean, this is just a super great technique all year for everything you want to catch. So, you know, if you're going to present live bait, keep the slip bobber in mind. Now granted, like the video says, this is just the basics, so there's more that goes into it. I got a couple other videos out there, feel free to take a look. But hey, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.